All right, so the next thing we probably want to do is build a matrix. So I think the matrix is probably going to be the best method to articulate how many people you have per branch by position, and then who you have currently, and the hires and losses over the next 180 days. So what we'll do is click on the matrix, we'll drop it in here, we'll resize it appropriately. Now it has the branch, the role, authorized, total, the starting percentage. We have hires in the next 30 days. We have losses in the next 30 days. We have our total 30-day calculation. We have our 30-day percentage that's based on the authorized. And then we have the same thing, but for every 30-day increment, all the way up to 180 days. So I'm going to show you how to build this from the ground up. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to kill everything that we made here, and we'll go ahead and start small, right? So I'll just delete all these two. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the branch name. So you have Austin, LA, Miami, and so on. You have the roles. We want the role name as well, just like that. And we're going to expand everything as well. So you want to see them all. And now everything else is going to go into values because we want those calculations showing over here. So we can minimize all these because we're not going to use them. We're going to go into measures. And we created a measure folder already, so no issues, right? The first measure that we're going to make is authorized. So all we did was we took a sum of authorized, and we're just going to drop that in here now. We also want to make sure this is a 1,000 separator, which it is. We have that listed properly. The next one we want to do is total. So how many do we have right now? This can be based on current personnel. So we have a measure already for total. We're going to go ahead and just drop that total in there as well. So there we have it. The next thing we're going to do is going to be starting percentage. So how many do we have right now? So all that's going to do is divide the total and the authorized as well. So you have starting percentage here. So all we're going to do is divide. We're going to do total and authorized. And our alternate result is going to be 0. And then we're going to run that. And we're going to make sure it's a percentage value. And I'm going to just turn it down to 1 as well. And we're just going to incorporate that one in there. And now we have our percentage. And you always want to validate this number too, right? The next thing we want to do is identify how many hires we have the next 30 days, how many losses we have, the 30-day total calculation based upon the hires and losses, and then the percentage of that against the authorized number. All right, so we're going to call this hires less than 30 days. We're going to say equals, and we're going to set up our two variable expressions here. So variable expressions, simply put, are just going to store a value. So it's going to store an exact expression that we want based upon a common name that we want to put for it. So we're going to put var as variable. Then we're going to call it today. That's going to be our simple name that we want to call it. And the actual expression associated with today is going to be today. And the next one we're going to do is variable. We're going to call this target date. And that equals today plus 30. Now, the next part we want to do is actually enable these variable expressions. So we have these common names that we built for these expressions next to them. So we want to take these and actually use them within the body of our DAX expression that we're creating. So what we're going to do now is actually call them here in the body. So we're going to make another one, and this one is going to be variable hires in 30. So equals, we're going to say calculate, we're going to say count rows, we're going to say future hires, then we're going to say start date for future hires is greater than or equals to our today function that we created. And then it's also equal to, let's go ahead and grab this real quick. It's also less than or equal to, we're going to close up that calculate, our hires in 30. So essentially what we did was, rather than writing a more complex DAX, we just took a common name based upon our stored expression that we have here, and we made another common name, but we're calling the common names that we built up here within the variable expressions, And we're basically saying within this body of this DAX, just make sure that the calculation that you're doing is only including people based upon these 2 dates. So from today and then 30 days from now, if they're in higher. If they are in higher, calculate that and give me the total value and return this expression that's calling these variable expressions up here. So it can be a little bit confusing at first, and I get that completely. You don't have to use variable expressions here if you don't want to, but it is a good practice. However, there are other ways to do this as well, but this is just one way. So I'm going to run this, and once we drop that in there, we can see we have a hire of 4 total for data analyst for Austin, less than 30 days from now. Now, we're going to take a little bit of different approach. I'm not going to have you build the losses and then the total and then the percentage. What I'm going to do is have you build the next one, so hires less than 60 days as well. So from 31 days to 60 days, and we're going to build out all the hires first and then move on to losses. So here I have a pre-built DAX expression for 60 days. And the only difference is that I added this piece up here. And it's just saying, hey, for today, my starting point is going to be from today, 31 days from now. So instead of today, it's going to be 31 days from now. It's going to be the starting point of the calculation. And then your backstop, your target date is going to be 60 days. So it's only going to look in the future 31st day up to the future 60th day. So that's going to be your calculation. And then all we did was just rename this to hires in 60. We renamed this as well to hires in 60. And then we just change our DAX expression as well. We did that for 60. We did that for 90, 120, 150, and then 180 as well. And then just to show you a glimpse of what that looks like, we have hires 90 here. So same thing. We have 61 days to 90 days. For 120, we have 91 days to 120. 150, we have 121 to 150. And then lastly, we have 151 to 180 for hires less than 180. We have all that built out already, right? Super simple, easy stuff. And the only thing that we're doing different for losses is literally just changing our reference locations for where we're getting our data. So no longer are we going to be calling the hires table, we're going to be calling the losses table and the loss date as well for each one. But the rest of them, they're all going to stay the same. All you really have to do is copy this, change the reference, and you're good to go. And that's what I like to do personally, is you reuse blocks of code so you don't have to rewrite things from scratch. All you have to do is just change a reference and you're good. But let's go ahead and simulate that. So we have hires less than 30. So now we're going to build out the losses less than 30 as well. And in order to do that, all I'm just going to do is I'm going to copy this whole thing, right? And we can make a new measure. We can call this losses less than 30 days equals, and we can paste what we had, right? So no change here. But all we're going to do here, change our reference table. We're going to change our reference column as well for projected end date now instead. And then we could just copy this and plug that in here. And then we're going to rename this to be losses in 30. And same thing, losses in 30. And that's it, folks. That's all we have to do. We don't have to do too much reworking on this entire DAX expression. And now we can just copy this and essentially follow the same blueprint we did for hires. All we're doing is just changing our targets for when we're ending our calculation and when we're starting our calculation as well, adding those 30-day increments. So nothing too complex here. All right, so we're going to add that expression that we just made for losses less than 30 days. So you have 4 hires, we have 4 losses in total. So that means our total should stay the same, right, for what we started out with, which was 390. And now it looks like we have the correct value of 390 days. And then the next thing we're going to do, you're going to build out our percentage. So what's the percentage of 390 divided by 463? So we already know what it is. But we're going to do it for the 30-day increment as well. So we're going to go ahead and create a measure. You can do that simply by clicking on new measure. We're going to say divide. Our numerator is going to be 30 days measure that we made. In order to call the measure, we have to say a single apostrophe. So we have to insert that. And we want to go ahead and click on the right one. And then our denominator is going to be authorized. Our alternate result is going to be 0. We're going to make sure we're at a percentage. We're going to make sure we're at the 1 for decimal values as well, decimal places. And then we're just going to go ahead and bring that in. And now we're at 84.2. So we know there's no change. So no issues there, right? So let's go ahead and build out the hires for up to 180 days. We'll build out the losses for up to 180 days. We'll build out the same thing for the total value of each one as well for 30-day increments up to 180 days. And the same thing for the percentage as well. And then the only thing I'm going to build out in here is going to be the percentages. So I no longer want to see all these other values. They are good to have though, right? But I only want to see the percentage because that's what the demand was when we were mind mapping. So I only want to propagate that. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'll just delete all this other stuff here. And another thing here is that you guys want to validate everything, right? Even though you're doing this and you may have done it quite a bit, you just want to continue to evaluate everything that you're doing, all these calculations to ensure that you just didn't fat finger something. So it can happen, and honestly, it does happen quite often. All right, so these are our total percentage that we have. They're starting out with this value, and then we're ending at 180 days with these values. All right, so I'm going to leave it like that. And now what I want to do is I want to also format all this stuff, okay? I want to make sure my table's in a good condition. Everything's all centered because right now it's not. So I want to make sure that the table is highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and go to my specific column here. I'm going to go to authorized. Go to header and total. I'm going to align everything. I'm going to do that for every single one, which unfortunately does take time. Okay, once you're done with that, I can actually adjust this as well because that did buy me some horizontal space. I'm not going to format the design of it just yet, but bring in more data points as well. So let's do total hires and total losses as well. So I'm going to put that over here somewhere, just so we have that data point too. So we're just going to copy these KPIs. We already have the measure in place, so that's kind of easy, right? Just going to remove that. We're going to say authorized here. And we already have our total. So maybe I'll just reformat this now. And then we'll bring in a slicer. And then that'll allow us to see specifics within an organization as well. And I might end up putting these over here and like stacking them up. And probably bring this over here more to them. Maybe shrink this a little bit. Just so we have more space to work with in case we want to build out more stuff. I'll shrink this one too. That means we have to shrink these as well because they are supporting values. So 30 looks good. So everything's aligned now. So we're good there. And I do have space for one more. We can always add that too. And maybe we'll just bring this one down here or replicate this one. And we'll want to put the total for our starting number, which is our current. So we'll call this change the total name to employees. All right, so we're going to slice it at the top, and that's going to be for branch. So that's going to be branch name. And I want it to be a drop down instead. We're going to change that. And then we're going to control copy. I'm going to do the same thing, but this one is going to be for the role instead. So role name. And we're just going to call that role. And we're going to change that here too, just so it's all the same. And this one is going to be branch as well. And I'll change it here too. And now we have space to build other things as well. So let's go ahead and use that space. And I might just toss these up here, maybe, just because they're a little bit out of the way. I have room for a title and I have room for more visuals now too. So we did make a measure for total or current personnel. So I think we should do the same thing for gains, and we should do the same thing for losses as well. So we have that to roll into a visual. Go ahead and control copy this. We'll click on new measure. We'll say total hires. I'll do feature hires. And remember, we already have the filter in place, right? So we know our data is going to be good, regardless of the date band that we might be looking at in particular. So go ahead and copy this KPI here. Just toss it over here. Bring that down a little bit. And we'll remove that. We'll put total hires here. Make sure it's a 1,000 separator. Do another measure. So I'll copy this one first. I'll do total losses. Do 1,000 separator as well. Control copy. Control V. Remove this one. Mouse this one here. We have 956 and 848. All right, so let's just test our interactivity between all our reports real quick, just to make sure everything works. Austin looked good here. 3762, 4163. Good to go. And then roles as well. Data analyst. Looks like we have 1906. All the numbers are matching up. No issues there. And that's just one simple way to validate, right? You always want to keep doing this before you push something into production, because it's just a good way to ensure you have accuracy when it comes to your report and the interactivity that the end user is going to have. All right, so the next thing I want to do is create a line and cluster column chart. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and bring it over here. And the reason I want to make one is because it's going to allow me to see my hires and my losses and total personnel over time, over the next 180 days. I'm going to scroll down and select total hires and total losses, and this will just be my totals for now. I'm going to make a new measure now as well. That's going to be projected personnel. So I'm just going to go ahead and title it that, projected personnel is what it'll be called. It equals, and then we'll do total plus total hires. Kind of wish the IntelliSense was a little bit better so I could actually see what I'm looking at or want to look at. And then we're just going to actually minus this one. So that's an error on my part. So we're going to do plus hires minus losses. This will be our projected personnel month over month. Then we'll bring it to the line because that's where we want it. Right now it's not going to show anything, right? Because we don't have a time series built on it. So we're going to put time in here. We're going to go to our date table, and this is where our date table comes handy. We're going to go to our date, and we can see all these different attributes that we have. We actually don't want to use the date hierarchy here because I want to use month name. So I'm going to use month name. I'm going to put in the x-axis. And here we have the total hires and losses and the total personnel that we'll have at the end of the month every month. And then keep in mind, we also have a filter on this entire report too. Just as a refresher, if we go back to filter, we have the date filter here for the next 6 months, including today. So this is why you have an accurate representation of where we're at. So we see that we have no hires or losses in April and May simply because we don't have that data. And you could also exclude those months just by shaping it to where it's only looking at the next 120 days. But we're just simulating here that April, May does have data points in it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is format this just a little bit. So I don't really need titles too much. I don't really care about them oftentimes because it's kind of self-explanatory as it is. So I can just remove those. And we're just going to keep this simple. And we're just going to only change the title, the main title that we have. And we're just going to call this turbulence. And I'll go ahead and center that. And we'll do the rest of the formatting later. And at least this will give us a general understanding of what this item is. So the next thing I want to build is a clustered bar chart. And I'm going to put that over here. Make sure I get some space. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring in total losses as my attribute for it. And the data point I want to see is going to be losses by attrition reason. So now we have the total amount of losses by reason. And if I simply click on one of these, it's going to filter down appropriately. It's going to filter down here as well. And we'll see all the data points that we want to see. And if you couldn't tell, none of these measures change simply because they're static values based upon what's in the current population right now. You do see that this table did change, and I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply ensure that my interactions don't align from this one and this one, because I don't want this to be clicked and then it show this, but I do want this to be clicked so it can show everything on the turbulence, the losses, everything else, right? So I just don't want this to affect this. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and select my visual because I want to ensure that this one does not affect this chart at all. So I'll select it here, I'll go to format, I'll go to edit interactions, and then you can see all these options here, right? So all these options basically mean, hey, if you select the none, then that means it's not going to do anything, right? So if I make any selection here on my visual, it's not going to interact here, so everything will just stay as is. You can also highlight it, and you can also filter appropriately too. We won't focus on those right now. We're going to just focus on the none. So I'll select that. I can now turn off edit interactions. And then if I select something here, it's no longer going to affect anything, right? So there's no value changes at all. All right, so we're going to focus on this visual a little bit as well. So we're just going to change the title, turn that off. And the reason I turn it off is because the title itself should naturally just be a good indicator of what the chart is. And if it's not, then you probably just need to focus on that maybe, because the more you have here, the less space you have in your visual arena from the horizontal and vertical space that you already have, which is limited to some degree. So I just focus on the title. And for this one, I'm just going to put attrition reason. And I'll center it as well. All right, so we have a bunch of data points here now, right? So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probably build a tooltip. And the reason I want to build a tooltip is because if I select my hires, I want to ensure that I have a data point that lets me see what is the gender amount of my hires or even my losses as well. And the same thing for these as well. So you can see if I select retirement, I don't have the genders populated here. So I want to ensure that I have that value present too. But first thing, I'm going to change this. I'm just going to call it workforce for now. And we're going to create a new page. We're going to format this one to be a tooltip. So you can see now it gives us a small canvas to operate in. And then what I'll do is probably bring in a pie chart. I'm not hugely a fan of pie charts, but for this case, I'll do. And then what I want to do is select my losses. I'm going to go ahead and find gender. And then I'll go ahead to my measure now. And then I'm going to go find total losses. And that'll be one attribute that I get. And now what I want to do is just change the name of the page. And then we'll go here. We'll go to turbulence. We'll click on the paintbrush. We'll go to general report page. And then it'll be gender. All right. And then if we select it, we can see the total gender for November, the total for December, and so on. And then let's just say we want to get a little bit crazy and we wanted to showcase both the hires and the losses in one space. What we could do is simply change this graphic a little bit. So we'll change this into a clustered bar chart. We'll move this over here so we have space. We'll make everything small. Actually, control copy this, put that over here. So it's in the middle for both. We'll change this title. I'll go by gender losses. And then we'll change the title size as well. We'll center it. All right, so that's a little bit more of a better fit. We can also turn off the titles for anything that we have. We'll change that, and maybe we'll just even change it to a clustered column chart so we can see it a little bit better, even more so. And then the x-axis, we'll go ahead and change that and decrease that. And then we'll delete this one. We'll now replicate this one. All right, we have a little bit more space to work with here. I'll bring this one over. We'll bring this one over too. There we go. And now what we'll do is simply change our attributes that we have. So we have total hires. And then we go to future hires. We go to gender as well. And now this is what we have, male and female. And we want to make sure that they're both symmetrical, right? So are we going alphabetical or are we going by value? So let's go by alphabetical. I think that makes most sense. So this one's female to male. So we'll just change it as well. Sort by gender and then by ascending. And there we are. I actually want to change the title first. So by gender, hires. And then I'm going to select them both. And we will go to visual, go to data labels, or turn those on. And it still has the indicator bottom, which I don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that title off as well. And now we have the most amount of space that we can occupy here. And it works out for us. And now I have gender hires. And I have gender losses as well for each month. And if I just scroll over the months, I can see everything that I want to see. Pretty cool, right? And then I can do the same thing here for the attrition reason as well. So we'll go to general. We'll go to tooltips. And report page. And then we'll go to gender. But the problem is now that it has the attrition reason for hires as well. I don't want that, right? I just want the losses. So I'll actually have to make a separate one just for that. So I'll go ahead and duplicate this. So we'll duplicate. Let's call this attrition. I'll remove that. And we'll just keep that like that. And I'll call this one turbulence. And we'll go back to workforce. And we'll change this reference. And there we are. So 110 plus 103 equals 213. And there we have 213 right there. And then we probably want a title as well. So we'll go ahead and insert a text box. And the text box can probably go up here somewhere. Let's drag that up here. And we'll just call this workforce analysis. Make that bold. We can center it if we want. Doesn't really matter because we got to adjust this anyways. Go ahead and make that size pretty large. Just because it stands out. And we also want to make sure we don't have this little scroll bar here too, because that looks kind of weird. And it's off-putting, right? And there we go. So it looks like we have most of the data that we really wanted to see, which is great. But now what we want to do as well is ensure that we go back to this table because this is where majority of the information is. But this is going to be really up to you, right, on how you want to display this information within your workforce. You can do percentages. You can do 90-day increments if you want. You can do every 180-day increments if you want, depending on how you operate, or 60 days. It doesn't really matter. And you can also adjust it to where you show the total value too. But one more thing I want to add is going to be your net change as well. So that's what we want to include, because right now what I see is the percentages. And I'll go ahead and add the other attributes that we had too, just so we can see the full picture. I'll scroll down here a little bit. And I'll add what we're going to have in 30 days. I'll add the hires that we're going to have in 30 days. And I'm going to add the losses that we have in 30 days. What we don't have within this is going to be the net change. So technically for Austin, it would be 7, right? And then for data analysts specifically, it would be 0. Same thing here, 0. And then for here, it would be 6 because you have 1 loss. So scrolling through this, you might see the totals, but you don't want to see your end user or whoever the consumer is of this product doing math, right? And you want to ensure that they have the best data in front of them, but also so that they can consume it in the least amount of time possible, and then but also understand it too. So let's go ahead and build a net change over time for 30 days, and then you can replicate that for every other day increment band that we have too for these groupings if you want to ingest it yourself. So all we're going to do is click on measure. We're going to type in new measures, and I'll just call this net change less than 30 days. We'll go equals, and I'm going to do a simple calculation here. It's not going to be anything fancy at all. We don't really need to go fancy here simply because it's a simple calculation, right? So I'm just going to take my hires value that I have created, and I'm going to say minus losses less than 30 days, and we're just going to run that. And that is going to be a whole number value. And I'm just going to simply integrate that here. Net change less than 30 days, and I'll put it before the total. So it's after the hires and losses. And that is what we have. So you can see exactly what I was talking about is now portrayed here within the table itself. This is a great way to display the data too. So you don't just have your hires, your losses, your net change, your total value, but you have your percentage as well. So this is the entire picture of what you're going to have. And then this is essentially going to wrap up all the data together. So you have everything for that entire month in one picture. And then you can also see the net change you're going to have in 30 days is going to be a +6 growth, which is great. So you can also see which period of time are you losing the most amount of people easily here. You can also see that here as well, but this is just another visual, right? And then you could also see as well for the totals of the less than 30 days for the net change over time, if you need to do anything within your workforce to keep those employees for a little bit longer so that it doesn't hurt your workforce as much. All right, so we're back in Lucidchart now. So let's just do a quick recap and ensure that we have everything that we mind map here integrated into our dashboard. So we have gaps in teams, right? So gaps in teams is also going to be the same in hires and losses. So we have that within the table because we have the branch and we have the roles as well. And we have the data associated with it. We have a chart that showcases new hires and losses over the next 180 days. We have hires by gender as well. So we did that tooltip. We don't have a by name, but we'll work on that one. Percentage of filled versus vacant. So we have the percentage of what we're going to have and then what we currently have as well. And then the inverse is going to be the vacant. So I don't think we actually need to showcase the vacant percentage because that's just simple math, right? But we have the net change as well. And then we have total workforce after hires month over month, which we have in our table. We do have our attrition reason as well in the top right. And that is also showcased by gender as well. And then if you want, you could also change the tooltip to even be by role. So you're not just looking at the gender, but you're looking at the role too of what's coming in. But the reason I did it by gender is because we already kind of have that value of the role within the table for the enumerations. So this is just a different data point to showcase the same amount of data elements that we have. We have the net change, hires over losses already. We have the month over month total as well, embedded within that. We have the total by team, branch, and gender as well. So you can just click on anything and it'll drill down appropriately. Job type distribution, we have the same thing as well. And then skills and roles at risk. So we can also build that one out too. So skills and roles at risk and then by name, I think are the only things we have left to truly work on. And I think we'll be done with this product.